welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 Top of the Pops controversies.
Time is never time at all. You can never ever leave.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we'll be ranking the most scandalous moments or incidents that took place on stage or behind the scenes at Top of the Pops. Were you aware of any of these? Let us know in those comments below. Number 10, a complicated history of miming. The history of miming on Top of the Pops is more complex and controversial than you may think. This is thanks largely to rules set by unions designed to protect the rights of musicians. Initially, Top of the Pops performances featured a total pantomime, but the unions and TOTP came to an agreement in July of 1964, whereby a new backing track was to be recorded by the whole band, specifically for their performance. The TOTP orchestra was also on hand to accompany these new recordings, but accounts vary as to whether or not this arrangement was always done every time.
Hit me with your rhythm stick.
Top of the Pops officially allowed live singing in 1991, but as we'll soon see, many TOTP rules were apparently made to be broken. Number 9, hey, you're doing it wrong. The decision for guests to mime on Top of the Pops wasn't one that was made arbitrarily, but for a number of reasons. For starters, not every artist or group with a hit record necessarily wanted to play live. Additionally, the acoustics in the room used at the BBC TV Centre weren't ideal for live performances.
Somewhere just between the past and something dawned in you.
Of course, not every band that ever appeared on TOTP approached this promotional opportunity in the same way, with infamous taking the piss performances from 90s alt-rock acts like Nirvana basically poking fun at the entire format of the show, upon which they were the featured guest.
Load up on drugs, kill your friends as fun as to.
Number 8, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and Boy George Push Boundaries. The landscape for out and proud LGBTQ+ performers was a very different place back when artists like Culture Club and Frankie Goes to Hollywood took over the Top of the Pops set.
Do you really want to hurt me? Do you really want to make me cry?
For some, this was their first time seeing daring visual artists like Boy George in the flesh, while Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood was actually banned by the BBC prior to their appearance on the show.
Relax, don't do it. When you want it calm. Relax, don't do it.
The group's actual performance on the show helped make them mega stars, thanks in part to their daring, provocative sexuality, as well as their commitment to pushing any and all buttons that stood in between Frankie and chart-topping pop dominance. Number 7, Iron Maiden makes some demands. Top of the Pops were very desirous to get heavy metal's hottest young band, Iron Maiden, on the show back in the early days of 1980. Maiden and their management had one very specific demand, however. They wanted to play live, and they weren't taking no for an answer. We've already mentioned how the acoustics at TOTP weren't even designed for proper pop music, never mind loud and ear-piercing heavy metal, but Maiden got what they wanted, with a couple of caveats. Former guitarist Dennis Stratton told Details to Classic Rock in 2018 how the amps were set super low and Clive Burr's drum taped down, in an effort to keep the decibels down. For our money, it sounds just fine. Number 6, The Smashing Pumpkins, a band. The reasoning behind the banning of the Smashing Pumpkins song Disarm from Top of the Pops has to do with the horrific, senseless, and tragic murder of James Bulger back in 1993.
Cut you like you want me to. Cut that little child.
The viciousness of the crime impacted British culture in a massive way, to the point where tabloid newspapers even pointed to the alleged influence of video nasty horror movies as a motive for the crime. Disarm tied into these attempts to reconcile Bulger's loss, with some fans associating Billy Corgan's lyrics with the child's violent death. Although this wasn't true, the crime was so emotionally powerful for people at the time, Top of the Pops decided to ban the song from being performed on the show.
Is never time at all. You can never ever leave.
Number 5. New Order plays live. We mentioned earlier how well Iron Maiden remembered their performance when they appeared on Top of the Pops. New Order would probably rather forget their time on the show, although fans will likely never forget how poor the band sounded when they demanded to play live on the pantomime show.
How does it feel when you treat me like you do?
Drummer Stephen Morris told The Guardian in 2006 how technical problems with the synthesizers, while band singer Bernard Sumner is clearly having trouble hearing himself on stage.
And I thought I was mistaken, and I thought I'd heard you speak.
Morris went on to recall a separate incident when the TOTP crew also had a go at the group for their stage presence, or rather, a lack thereof, quoting a cameraman who reportedly said, "This lot don't move a muscle." Number 4. Child endangerment. Top of the Pops was known by many for its glittering exterior and anything goes mentality behind having a good time, all the time. However, behind the scenes was often a very different story, and there are sadly many stories about those who filled up the TOTP dance floor. A 2016 report from Judge Dame Janet Smith revealed much about the culture of Top of the Pops, specifically how it fostered an opportunity for the endangerment of children. Smith specifically referenced the, quote, testosterone-laden atmosphere of TOTP when it came to young girls, and how it was easy enough for those without a ticket to sneak onto the set. To quote Smith again, "It seems to me obvious that those girls were at real risk of moral danger." Number 3, claims dismissed.
Hello and welcome once again to Top of the Pops.
The specificity of the Dame Janet Smith review dealt with one particular member of the Top of the Pops crew, but the final report also detailed what happened when artists or TOTP employees reportedly saw something and attempted to say something. These claims, sometimes by the victims themselves, were allegedly dismissed by those in charge at the time. More attention was drawn to the Smith review in 2016, when the famous DJ Tony Blackburn was fired by the BBC over allegations that he'd had an improper relationship with a 15-year-old TOTP audience member, Claire McAlpine. Blackburn denied all wrongdoing, and he'd be reinstated with the BBC later that year. Number 2, Claire McAlpine, tragedy and scandal. The Claire McAlpine story didn't end with her alleged involvement with Tony Blackburn. McAlpine was a regular on Top of the Pops and could often be seen dancing on the show from week to week. Tragically, the young woman would be found unresponsive at her parents' home on the morning of March 29th, 1971, the victim of an overdose. A diary would be found at the residence and taken by the police, where McAlpine reportedly called out TOTP DJs who had, quote, used her. It was just one harrowing tale from a program that allegedly fostered a backstage culture ripe for misconduct, secrecy, and cover-up. Number 1. The shock and horror of Jimmy Savile. The scale and scope of the crimes laid at the feet of disgraced DJ and presenter Jimmy Savile is nothing short of monstrous. Although Savile's history of abuse doesn't begin or end with Top of the Pops, his time on the show is seen by many as a huge stain upon the program's already troubled reputation. The aforementioned Smith Review claimed that Savile abused over 70 people during his time on the show, and that he used his influence on the show to access young women on set. The man's laundry list of alleged crimes has also been the subject of documentaries such as ITV's Exposure: The Other Side of Jimmy Savile, shining a much-needed light upon one dark and shocking situation.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo UK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.